The Dred Scott decision is the result of a case that had begun in the 1840s and wended its way up through the state courts of Missouri and then into federal court. It comes to its climax in the winter of 1856 to 57, in that interim where James Buchanan of Pennsylvania has been elected president, but doesn't actually take office until March 4th. At that time was when the president's inaugurated. Somewhat irregularly, one might say, Buchanan, as president-elect, is in touch with one of the members of the Supreme Court, Greer of Pennsylvania, about what's going on in the court's deliberations. And it becomes clear that there's a 5-4 majority on the court in favor of the Southern position, that is, that slavery cannot be prohibited from going into the territories. But Buchanan realizes that a 5-4 decision, 5 Southerners versus 4 Northerners, is not going to have any legitimacy at all in the North. And he basically twists the arm of Greer from Pennsylvania to go along with the majority. So in the end, you get a 6-3 decision, ultimately, with this one Northerner on the side. And Buchanan thinks this is going to solve the slavery issue. He's coming into office. A few days after he's inaugurated, the decision is handed down. And he says, okay, the Supreme Court has decided, and this will settle the slavery issue, which the issue of the westward expansion of slavery had been roiling politics since the 1840s. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which opened the Kansas area to the possible expansion of slavery, had disrupted the political system completely and brought Lincoln and others back into political life. The decision is meant to eliminate basically the Republican Party, but it also poses a big problem for Stephen Douglas, the leading Democrat, because Douglas's position was popular sovereignty. That is to say, the people, the residents of a territory, have a right to decide for themselves if they want slavery or not. Well, Southerners immediately say, now wait a minute, if the Supreme Court says slavery must go into every territory, how can the people of a territory keep it out? They have no more right to deprive us of that ability to take slaves there than Congress does. And so how can there be popular sovereignty? In the Lincoln-Douglas debates, Lincoln asks Douglas this famous Freeport question at Freeport, Illinois. Specifically, he says, in accordance with the Dred Scott decision, can a territory legally keep slavery out of it? He's trying to widen the breach in the Democratic Party between Southern Democrats and Northern Democrats like Douglas, who still want to maintain a position that the territories can keep slavery out if they want. Douglas says, yes, they can, not by passing a law prohibiting slavery, because the Supreme Court has said they can't do that, but by simply refusing to give protection to slavery. Slavery needs a whole edifice of legal and police protection. If you refuse to give it protection, it can't go in. So therefore, the territory has the ability to keep it out, even with the Dred Scott decision in place. Well, of course, Southerners say, well, that's no good. How could a territory deprive us of our right? And that leads the South to move to its next position, which is Congress must protect slavery in the territory. If a territorial legislature refuses to protect slavery, then Congress has to go in there and protect it. So that means what they call a congressional slave code. Congress has got to pass the laws now guaranteeing slavery in all the western territories of the United States. So now Douglas will not accept that any more than any other Northerner will, and that position of the Southern Democrats eventually is the rock on which the Democratic Party splits apart in 1860. The Southern demand for a slave code in the territories and the Northern Democrats' refusal to accept that position. So ultimately, the Dred Scott decision is really one of the key things in disrupting